Okay, let it continue to play before I go on.
You know, everyone's been through it somehow. Everyone. And a lot of things disappeared, but a lot of bullshit went with it. They're all from totally different backgrounds, different places. They never would have even met, and now they're part of each other's lives. We all lost things, but we got something back. It isn't enough, but it's something.
No, it was a time, man. You saw it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty good view.
Hey,
See, now you're officially one of us.
Rick is behaving so weird. When she was talking to him, he had like a dazed look. And then when she talked about how we lost so much and everything, Rick was tearing up, like thinking about, again, ghosts of the past. Then she switched to, oh, but they've gained so much. He turned and he sees Carl with her son and the other preteens or teenagers. I have no idea how old Carl is. Probably about 14. I don't know. I'm thinking early teens. But seeing Carl laughing with his friends, Rick then got upbeat and happy. And then Sam came in and, oh, he didn't get a stamp and he wanted cookies and just the normality of it. Rick fell into that rhythm. He seemed upbeat. But as soon as she left, that light, upbeat mood that Rick had left. It just disappeared, and he had a really dark look. That word keeps coming back, like a predator. He had that look that, you know, it's somebody is planning something diabolical, something nefarious. That look, Rick is not okay. And anybody who sees this situation with Jesse and think Rick is smitten and he's just, you know, doing the normal courtship, whatever. I'm scared of people who think the way Rick is behaving is normal. That's not normal. That's scary. That's creepy. And if there's one thing Rick is, he's not a creep. That's not Rick's true nature. Rick is almost dissociating. He's literally compartmentalizing himself according to the games he's playing and presenting to different people. I wouldn't want to be around this Rick, and I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him, because that's an unstable man. He's not right in the cabeza.
Trying to make a getaway, huh? I'm Spencer. Deanna's my mom.
Your mom.
I like Sasha's top. You can't go wrong with a simple, elegant, spaghetti strap black top or dress.
She seems nice.
Make sure you don't get stuck with Mrs. Niedermeyer. She really, really likes talking about how much she wants a pasta maker. It's not a conversation you want to have.
In the
Excuse me.
apocalypse. Sasha's like, excuse me, this is ridiculous.
I'd like you to be Alexandria's other recruiter. I don't want Eric risking his life anymore.
You want me to risk mine, right?
Yeah, because you know what you're doing.
I got nothing else to do. Thanks.
Michonne. Party sword.
I'm packing different steel nowadays. Live by it, you die by it, you eat potato puffs by it. Pray to God you don't have to use it again. Pray to God you don't get used to not using it again. It's on your back, even when it's off your back.
How much have you had to drink?
I am a large man, and I have had many beers to make up for that. By that brave act, I've come to realize that things have worked out pretty damn well. How about you? What have you done?
I put on this dress.
Try again.
So interesting little conversation with Michonne and Abraham One thing I did not like about this arc, there's a lot of things I didn't like about this arc because it could have been done better. If the route they went was not necessary, they were trying to fulfill an arc in the comic. Right before Andrea got with Rick, he was with Jesse, but the relationship in the comic is completely different than what happens in this arc. They did this arc to get to one point, one scenario, and they had to have the audience care about Jesse for there to be an impact. But just as it happened, something bigger even happens and sort of overshadows that. But I'm not going to get ahead. This is one of the areas where the writing got so manipulative, redundant, and completely inorganic. It was trying to play for the shock factor, and it did a disservice to our characters. A lot of disservice to our characters. They didn't even execute what they were trying to do well. Apart from getting the shock value, they lost a lot of ground that they gained in prior seasons. They dropped the ball in a lot of ways, especially on Michonne. Two ways they dropped the ball. One, they had Michonne in the shadows, and I understood a little bit of what they were trying to do. They were trying to get the audience to focus on Rick and this situationship that they're formulating. So they put aside Michonne in a way by have her ruminating in her head. She's out of sorts, trying to find her footing. She wants this place to work. She wants to fit in. So she's in the shadow, but it's too convenient, in my opinion. They wanted her out of the way so they can play this little tableau with Rick, because it doesn't make sense if she's there, because Rick is in love with her. So if she's there, it wouldn't make sense for him to be playing the games that he's going to be playing. So they conveniently pushed her out of the way. And as I said, it was just a bit too convenient that they had her in the dark, in the shadows, to reflect how she's feeling. But it really doesn't fit because she's uncertain if she'll be accepted. So it would make sense for her to be inside trying to fit in. But it doesn't fit the story they want to play out, because Rick is in love with her. And whenever Michonne is around, that's where his focus is. That's where his attention is. And they remove her from the stage. And that's not good storytelling. If the story that you're telling is authentic to the character would then display to the audience that he is compartmentalizing and how he would behave differently if Michonne was around. But they didn't want that. They wanted everyone to believe that this story that's going to play out is an authentic story. So we'll shove Michonne to the side, do that, and then when Act 2 is finished, we'll bring Michonne back and continue Act 1. That's not how things work. Life is messy. Things get mixed up and things clash. He's compartmentalizing and playing different games. And sometimes everything falls into the pot and he has to deal with that. And we didn't get a chance to see that. We get to see how he is with Michonne, and then we get to see how he is when he's with his ghost, with his avatar, but not a true situation where the two worlds clash. They kept them apart. That's not good writing. That's just, oh, I'll play with my toy here, and then I'll go over here and play with this here. There's one stage, and all the characters get to play on that stage. So that's one thing. And this is another thing, but it's not the second thing that I wanted to address, but the lighting. The lighting sucked. Yes, they're playing metaphorical games, but they didn't have to have Michonne so in the dark. Everyone had light on them except Michonne. Even Abraham, they made sure he was lit. And Michonne's trying to find her place doesn't mean she has to be shrouded in darkness, because that's not where she was mentally. Her uncertainty was her belief and hope. Her uncertainty was not a negative, it was a positive. She had belief and hope in Alexandria, so it was a positive. She was uncertain that it would work out. She was hoping it would work out. It was in a positive direction. The other beef that I have with this arc for Michonne is that they didn't give her, for this whole time, they didn't give her a competing love interest, in the sense that her head wasn't there. So I understand her not seeing other men's potential, but it makes no sense that other men didn't see Michonne's potential. Every other woman in Rick's group, you had other people interested in them except for Michonne. That made no sense. Michonne is not only beautiful but hella sexy. Yes, she's intimidating, but she's hella sexy. And guys in the apocalypse didn't let being intimidated stop them from looking or showing interest, because they had nothing to lose. They kept Michonne so isolated and put her in a little glass case for Rick. Yet every other woman that Rick had a relationship with or situationship with, I know there's only Laurie and Jesse, who is an avatar for Laurie. They had other men, rivals for Rick. With Michonne, they made sure she had no one rivaling Rick for her. That was the biases of the writers coming through, because it doesn't jive with reality at all. Even Enid had rivals for her attention. It was cowardly of the writers, very cowardly, frankly offensive. It's as if they're saying it's enough that Michonne was the top guy's girl and they weren't going to allow her to be touched or even hinted at by anyone else. But they had no such issues with the other ladies, and I do strongly believe that the racial makeup of Michonne was the reason. Frankly speaking, if Michonne was white, they wouldn't have a problem with that. I think they were nervous and they put a purity test on Michonne that went overboard. I think they expected an audience to have an issue with the relationship. They tried to overcompensate by trying to make Michonne acceptable in at least that way for some people. So they weren't writing for the character. They weren't writing for Michonne, and they weren't writing to stay true to the situation for the character. They were, in a way, objectifying her by being inauthentic with the writing surrounding her. And it did quite a disservice to the character, quite a disservice to the audience, because the majority of the audience accepted the relationship. The majority of the audience wanted the relationship. The majority of the audience saw the humanity of Michonne. Overcompensating this way with Michonne in so many ways, with this, with making her off limits to anyone else's gaze, looks, interest, was a disservice to her. Pushing her off the stage so that her soulmate could play out his story without it getting messy also was a disservice to her humanity. They treated Michonne like an object, a moving piece, instead of a live human character. That's what made me hate this arc. It wasn't about Rick losing his mind and emulating Shane and all of that mess. I think it was a poorly written arc, because the more authentic storyline for Jesse would have been a storyline with Carol. And they still could have gotten to the mid-season finale shock value that they wanted, because the audience could have come to care for Jesse through Carol and their similar situations. And Carol could have been with Rick and Michonne and Carl, with Jesse and her kids walking through that herd. And what Carol did with Sam would come back. That 360 moment would have even a greater impact with her there to witness it, and her arc later, it would make even more sense. Her witnessing what she did to Sam playing out right in front of her eyes. Trying to have the audience care for Jessie and her family could have been serviced through Carol and not Rick. And Rick could have gotten to the place where he was ready to let go. Rick could have gotten to that place still, because it was almost losing Carl that was the impetus for that. But then you'll ask, how would we get that kid to go after Rick, missing Rick and hitting Carl? I'm sure I could come up with something else. I haven't thought about it. That just occurred to me. We could have gotten there, and I'll come up with a scenario in my next reaction or when we get to that episode. How would we get that kid to go after Carl? Anyway, I hated Michonne's arc in these episodes. Just exposed the writers to me. It exposed the writers' biases and weaknesses, in my opinion.